This is actually the first of this new series of mine, People and Their Places. So I think you're going to understand in a few moments why I chose to start over here in Zichron Yaakov with Lihi. Lihi will introduce herself in a moment, but I wanted to say a few things about this idea. So my idea is based on the fact that I am convinced from my years of guiding people in Israel that the most interesting thing at the end of the day is when places and people intersect. Places come to life really for the people who visit them when there is a special story connected to a special person. And I've worked with Lihi for a number of years before Corona stopped the type of work we did together. And she is one of these special people. Before we actually get into your story, Lihi, because you're a native-born Israeli, and by the way, folks, some of the people that I'm going to be speaking with are native-born Israelis, Jews, Muslims, Christians. Some of them are going to be people like myself, people who actually came to live over here. And maybe this is a great segue into the quote that's on the wall behind us. So let's move out of the way, and Lihi, you'll do it in English, and then I'll try and translate
in Hebrew.
Sorry, you're right, in Hebrew, and I'll translate it.
באנו לארץ אבותינו לשם מטרה קדושה. שום בית אחר אין לנו בכל העולם.
So I want to translate what Lihi read so beautifully in Hebrew into English. We came back to the land of our fathers and our land in over here, mothers, for one holy purpose. We do not have any other home in this world. Here we will live and here we will die. The answer of one of the early pioneers, Meir Leib Hershko, to the question of why the Jewish people came here. What we are going to do now with Lihi is actually to try and find out from you, Lihi, why when I asked you to talk about a place that really tells the story of who you are, you chose Zichron Yaakov. So take us somewhere to begin the story which connects you to Zichron Yaakov.
Would love that. Let's go. So we started from the grave of my grandfather, who was born in 1921, which, when you think about it, there was almost nothing here, really.
So he was born here?
Right, in Zichron Yaakov.
Zichron Yaakov.
But the story of his father, who arrived here, is very interesting. His father was born in Constantinople, today Istanbul, in Turkey, and he was enlisted to the Ottoman army in 1914. And long story short, somehow he arrived here in Zichron. He was running away from the Turkish or Ottoman army, and he hid in the well in Zichron, which is right down there. We can't really see it, but this is the way it should be.
So he understood a thing or two, because of course 1917 the Turks have just lost the war.
Right.
The Turks they got into the war for the strangest reason, by the way, because the Turks hated more than anything else the Russians, so they went in on the side that fought the Russians for no real and obvious reason. He understood the way things were going. He runs away, and his son is born over here. I want you, by the visit that we do over here now, and as we continue through Zichron, to be actually telling us who you are, what you care about in Israel, and really about your identity as a young Israeli person. So you think of that while you tell your story.
Okay.
I just noticed, by the way, in the Hebrew, it says something about his eyes. What does it say about his eyes?
I'll read it from the beginning. Loving and loved, one of a kind and unique, has had blue eyes and full with kindness. My grandfather's eyes were very, very blue, much more bluer than mine, but it was a very distinct feature about him.
What is he for you? In what way does he define who you are today and your connections over here to Israel?
Wow, what a heavy question.
We only do difficult questions. Simple questions are for other people. What is it that makes him a defining person in terms of your Israeli identity? The site we go to, the other people we talk about are just ways of trying to unwrap. You know, I know you care deeply about things. I follow your posts on Facebook. I see how angry you've been in the last little while about a couple of things. So the question really ultimately is going to be, Lihi, who are you? All of the young Israelis I'm going to be meeting with are going to be answering the same question. Who are you? It's a way of enabling people to understand what this country is really made up of. Not the superficial stuff that people see, the 30 seconds about this conflict or about that economic issue. It's really about that very, I think, profoundly wonderful part of Israel, is that this country is made up of extraordinary people, and you're one of them for me. And I want you to explain to the people who are watching it, what do we learn about you from this?
Okay.
What do you care about? What makes you mad? What makes you happy? What makes you care about this place? What makes you frustrated with this place? Before we leave Yosef Cohen, the man with the beautiful blue eyes, before we leave his grave, we're going to just pause for a moment next to the small memorial, which by chance happens to be just across from his grave. A memorial to the 6 million Jews murdered in Europe. Just remember, it's the same families. The people who are buried over here had family in Europe. They must have been an incredibly complicated and difficult time for them living over here. Yosef Cohen, when the war breaks out, is 18 years old. He's the same age approximately as Mordechai Anilevich. Think of the two very different stories. Him over here as a young pioneer in in the land of Israel, Palestine at that time under the rule of the British, and Mordechai Anilevich, a young Jewish man in Warsaw, Poland, leading the Jewish underground. It's an extraordinary fact of our history that there are these two parallel big stories going on at the same time, and that ultimately these are the two stories that define who the Jewish people are in the 21st century. So we're going to continue our conversation, Lihi. I'm not 2 meters away, but we'll call this a meter. And I just want you people to know that we're sitting outside the Tishbe winery. When you come over here to Zichron, once Corona is over, this is a great place for us to come and have a glass of wine, to relax. Even they have got great chocolates here as well. Some more of the story of your grandfather, if you will.
Right. So after my grandfather arrived to Zichron Yaakov, or great-grandfather who arrived to Zichron Yaakov, he hid in the well in Zichron. And after the war was over and he got out, he became the keeper of the water treatment facility that was down there below.
In the valley.
In the valley, yeah, correct. And when he was working there, he saw all the
The farmers.
Right. So once he was working there, he saw all the farmers going to their fields, and he decided, well, hey, why don't I give them some coffee, some cakes? So he started to give them some coffee and cakes for free. And then someone someday told him, listen, why don't you open up some kind of a restaurant here, or an inn? And eventually what happened here in 1934, he opened the first inn down on road number 4. It was a very central point for all the truck drivers that were driving to north to Damascus and back to Israel or Palestine at the day. And it was here until 1984-ish, and my grandfather owned it as well, and that's the big story of my family, basically. And
show us a photograph.
Right. So this is the restaurant back in the day. Today you can't find anything there, but what's special about it is it was built right near the well where he kept. And
the well in which he hid?
Yeah.
The well in which he hid.
He hid, and then he was the keeper of the water facility treatment. And this is my grandfather, Yosefiko, with the blue eyes. This is my great-grandfather, Aful, the Turk. and this is my grandfather's sisters. So
Okay, so that's the 1930s great photographs. It's 2020. I want you to answer a couple of questions.
sure.
What is, if I were to ask you, what is the thing that you love most about Israel today?
Wow. I can't pinpoint one thing.
But you're going to have to. I'm not going to let you off easy on this. I'm going to ask you, what is the thing that you love most about Israel? What is the thing you find most difficult about Israel? And the third question I'm going to ask you is, if you had a magic wand, what is the one change you would make to Israel?
Wow, okay.
Those
All
are your
right.
3 questions.
So, I guess I'd say the uniqueness of the views in Israel and the history behind it. Can I say 2? It can't be 1.
So you want to give me 2 things in
Yes,
one?
I can. I can't just 1.
Okay.
I just love the beauty of this country and what it has to offer, and the stories behind each and every place that you go to. This is what I love the most about Israel. If I had a magic wand, what I would change?
What is the one thing you don't like about Israel? You can say whatever you want, by the way. This is, I'm not going to cut it out if it's too harsh.
I don't like what we've become lately.
And what does that mean?
I think we're very impatient. I think we can't tolerate other people, not only our neighbors, but among ourselves. For me, it feels like there's a lot of hate here, and it's just becoming harder, and this is something that I would very much like to change.
Okay, so you now have your magic wand. What specific change are you making with your magic wand?
I think peace among us, the Israelis, before we do it with our neighbors, because I think that once we're at peace, then everything else will be better and we will be able to speak with our neighbors. But before we do that, we need to be able to speak between ourselves and solve our own problems. And I guess also this is something that creates the problem that we have with a jury in the diaspora, for instance. We don't speak the same language, and we need to learn how to do that.
So Lehi, thank you for those answers. I want to ask you another question, to slightly broaden the lens. When you look at Israel today, what do you think is the most important issue on our agenda today as a country, as a society?
I think that the fact that we have a home, a place that we can call our own, is the most important issue. And when I see comments like that, Seth Rogen's, for instance, that is saying horrible things about us, or I used to be a shlicha in the U.S., and when I heard that...
Shlicha is an emissary.
Emissary, right. And I heard from a lot of people I was working with, or people on campus, that we don't really have the right to be here. That irritated me, and I think that's very important to know that we have a home, and this is my home. I was born here, my grandparents were born here, my parents were born here. I have a long lineage here, and I cannot see myself anywhere else but here. Yes, there are far more beautiful places than Israel, for sure, but this is my home, and this is where I feel secure and safe. And when people say that it's not my home and I don't have a legitimacy to be here and defend it, and this is an issue that I think we need to bring out to people.
And besides, thank you for your energy.
Thank you.
I think that the last comments bring us back to where we began, and the notion of what it means for us as the Jewish people to have a home. And even when that home isn't perfect, even when it needs redecoration, even when maybe a part of it really is crumbling, I think that it's a home, and we have a responsibility to really take care of our home. And I think we have to remind ourselves and other people that a home can be imperfect. And all we have to do if we care about that home is to work as hard as possible to make it as close to perfect as possible.
Right.
So thank you.
Thank you.